Oh, hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
What
Can
up,
you tell us what
Nancy?
LR can you tell us what LRM Online stands for? We were debating.
Latino Review Media.
I was
That's
close. I
better.
was real close.
Shay guest looking really magnificent.
Oh, thank you. Gentlemen, tell me how you worked your magic to create Primo.
Wait,
Wasn't Go
real
ahead.
quick. I just found out that y'all have watched the episodes. What did you think? Did you like it or did you hate it? Those are the
I
only two
liked it.
options.
I
Okay.
liked it. I really enjoyed it, and I've always wished I had a big family. I
Hmm.
don't have a big family. I mean, holidays still is just my mom and dad, and now my brother. We're like, I grew up being the only child for 20 years, so there are some things I can relate as an only child, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. I'm with you. I don't have a very big family either, and I did have some jealousy at times. Like the stuff in the pilot where uh at one point when Primo is upset and he's talking to his uncle and his uncle says oh, and you have six people in this family who give a damn about you. Boo hoo, that must suck. Like I felt a little jealousy in that moment because I was like, I wish I had six adults who had cared about me. But anyway, getting back to your original question, it wasn't really magic. It was just Shae had this idea. He met with a million people. I really liked his writing about hip hop and basketball and other things. And I was like, I like you and you seem great. And I would love to help you with this idea. And so when he chose me as his date for the ball, we just developed the show and like talked about stories. And I mean, he had never done it before, so he was learning like how to write TV while he was being paid to write TV, which is always a interesting proposition. But he's just a sponge. He just learned everything there is to learn about the process and wrote a great script. And it had a long path. Like it didn't get made by the first place we sold it, and then years later we slipped it to Freebie, and then they made it, and we hired great writers and a great production staff. Like it feels like magic, but what it really is just a lot of really good hard work done by a lot of really talented people, starting with Shae.
So, Shay, let's
Hmm.
start with the title. Why did you pick the title of Primo?
There was a scene that we ended up cutting that was in the pilot where Maya asks him why they call him Primo. Like, doesn't that mean cousin? And he's like, well, yeah, my uncles are like kind of my dad, so it kind of makes sense. And then she's like, well, why wouldn't they just call you like Nino or son or whatever? And he's like, again, everything only kind of makes sense. And so for the title of the show, we wanted something. I wanted something that like implied he was the first to do a thing, and Primo in my head sounds like that. And it's just like you grow up and you have cousins and or friends who their nicknames are Primo, and it just always to me I thought was like a cool word. It felt like a word in Spanish that you could put out there that wasn't going to intimidate anybody. You know what I mean? Like if somebody sees that, or like if somebody who doesn't speak Spanish sees that it's just Primo, okay, cool. That's easy to say, and I get it, and I kind of know what it means. And somebody who does speak Spanish, they're like, there's a different like a subtext to it, which is why we went with it.
You know what? And it's a good one. It's a catchy one.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What was it like when it came to putting together the family scenes? I spoke to a couple of the other cast, and I mentioned that felt very theater-like. So many pieces, the dynamic, the chemistry was so perfect. I mean, how did you manage to nail it for those scenes?
I think for me, all I had to do was like we had the cast and we had the directors and we had the DP and just like let them do what they do, get out of the way and watch them work. I remember when we were shooting the final scene of the pilot, which is when they're all sitting around the table talking with each other. That I remember we very vividly. We were there. Kabir was directing it, and we are sitting in the back in the like where the producers sit, watching it all happen, and they're like all joking with each other between takes, and you can see them becoming like friends almost, and you're like watching it happen. You're like, oh my god, this has a chance to be really really good, and then they just kept on getting better and better. I think in those situations, you lean on the actors, you lean on the directors, you lean on the crew and the cast to make it look as cool as possible, and then you sort of cross your fingers and hope. This is what I was doing. I don't know what everybody else was doing.
Well, it also starts with the writing, I think, because we used to have this idea on the show The Office, like if you've seen that show, you know that in basically every episode, Michael Scott at some point will say like, conference room, 10 minutes. And then you know there's going to be a big scene where there's some theme, some idea he's talking about, some dumb thing about corporate culture, and everyone is trapped in this room. And Greg Daniels, who adapted that show and sort of taught me everything I know about writing, used to call those scenes killing fields, because the idea was like you trap all the people in one place and all the people have really specific personalities. And there's some topic is thrown out onto the table of like ageism or like, you know, corporate like diversity rules or whatever. And because it's like this juicy idea, a boss who is a little bit of an ignorant dude, and then 12 or 15 people with really strong personalities, it's just joke, 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 joke. You just have all of these jokes coming out on this one theme from every direction. And a lot of scenes in this show started to feel that way because the premise is these 5 guys have really specific personalities. And Christina playing the mom is like this really specific personality. And Primo is this kid, this like 16-year-old kid who's like a little scared of everything, but also like kind of coming into his own. And then you would have like, what's the topic of the day? The topic of the day is girls or food or buses or whatever. And then you trap them all in a room and you give them this game to play. And then it's like really fun to write jokes for people when they have really clear personalities. So I think it's those scenes, which are my favorite scenes in the show, or when everybody's together. It starts with the concept of the show and the writing, and then you add in these great actors and everything just kind of takes off.
Yeah, how you relate? Is there someone you relate to or something?
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, I have the Drea characters based on my mom. The 5 uncles are based on my 5 uncles. Like, they're all a version of a real life person who I know. So I most closely relate to the Primo character. Who I was 16 and I found out I had a chance to go to college, and all of a sudden everybody had an idea of what I needed to do. And I just remember very vividly that point of my life. But watching the TV version of it play out is really like a surreal experience. It's also cool because you can be like, I wish somebody would have said this to me at this moment. Oh, now we can do that exact thing. Now they can say that. Let me type that up. You know what I mean? Like, it's really
yeah. For both of you, which one would be the one uncle you would want to hang out with?
Oh man, it totally depends on what we're doing, right? Is it just hanging out, not doing anything? Because I think that's different than like we're going out to a club or we're like, you know, like I think it's entirely dependent. Just one-on-one, just hanging out, spending time. Probably Mondo. I think he's like kind of like has an interesting brain, and like I would love to like if we were just going on a walk, I would go on a walk with Mondo. But different circumstances, you'd get a different answer, at least for me.
Yeah, that feels right. If I just was like right now, there's somebody sitting in my office. One of the uncles has got to be here for 2 hours. Who do I want it to be? I would probably go with Uncle Jay, just because he feels the most. He's the older brother. He's the most fatherly of the bunch, and I'm always that gravity pulls me toward it all the time.
Well, also, if you said after 20 minutes, if you wanted to like not talk to him anymore, you could just be like, "We're gonna stop talking now," and he'd be like, "Sounds good," and then he would just sit quietly.
That is too, and he has the business knowledge.
That's right. He can also give you advice. Yeah.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for your time. I enjoyed the show, like I said, and I'm sure many people are going to enjoy it too. They're going to relate. There's so many characters to be able to relate to.
I hope so. I hope you're right, Nancy.
Yes.
All right.
You're right.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.